Hey, friends, and welcome to the Wine CEO podcast show. My name is Sarah, and I'm a certified sommelier and host of the show. And each week on the show, I post a new episode talking about a different aspect of the wine industry to make it fun and approachable for my listeners. This week, I am talking about Portuguese wine. It's my first episode focusing on Portugal, and I'm interviewing Rita Pinto, who is a part of the Quinta de Pinto Winery. We talk about the current state of the Portuguese wine industry and her family's specific portfolio. It's an awesome episode. If you've ever wanted to learn more about Portugal, this is the one for you. So grab your favorite glass of wine and let's dive in. Well, Wine CEO podcast listeners, I am so excited. I have a very special guest on the show today. And I'm really excited because I found this guest through some previous podcast guests. So you may remember Dale and Stephen Ott from Nossa Imports came onto the show just a few weeks ago to talk about their incredible company that's importing wines from Mexico, but they also import wines from Portugal. And so today they are going to introduce us to an amazing winemaker that's doing some really creative things in Portugal. So Dale and Stephen, welcome back, and thanks for bringing your special guest onto the show today.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so excited. We feel very honored to be back.
Yeah, it's nice to be back.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. So tell us a bit about Rita, who you are bringing onto the show today.
Yeah, so like you said, we're importing wines from Mexico and Portugal. Sort of the ethos behind that is just that, you know, we miss a lot of the global wine story in the United States. We often just talk about the same 5 or 6 countries. And for us, Portugal and Mexico really fills out the rest of that global history. You know, Portugal connects the old world with the new world, Mexico being the oldest new world growing region on earth. So regarding Portugal, Rita and Quinta do Pinto wines are based in a very prolific region. So they're in the Lisbon appellation, in the subregion of Alenquer. And Lisbon, in terms of volume, is actually the highest producing region in the entirety of the country. When we first tried, this is years ago now. Gosh, I have zero concept of time, but it must be 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, when we first tried Rita's wines. We found something that was truly special for that region. They are a much more esoteric production. They're vinifying based off of soil type. There's a huge connection with the land. There's a huge connection with low intervention and making sure nature can actually run its course. And as a spokesperson for Lisbon and for Alenquer, we really feel that Rita tells a stunning story, both in her spoken and written word, and also just through her wines. Mm-hmm. So it's very much our honor to be pouring those wines stateside.
Absolutely, and I think you know, among various things that we feel so grateful to be able to be partnered with Rita and her family about. The story that we're able to tell, we think that they're incredible stewards of their land. They're so conscientious about their environmental impact, but also just the way that they are allowing the characteristics of their very particular part of the world to speak through their wines, and making sure that they're being good stewards for their community and for the people that work with and for them. And the other reality also, I think, is that they are unique in terms of many of the wines that we've tried from the Lisbon region and from sort of all over the world. Unique in their ability to at once preserve and communicate some of the really essential viticultural history and tradition of their place, while at the same time being open to sort of exploring and seeing what the potential is maybe outside of what those traditions have been, you know, for millennia. So we think that this kind of beautiful connection of stewardship and innovation is something that it's worth talking about.
Pretty magical.
Amazing. Well, you're already giving us so many great topics and things to talk about. So Dale and Stephen, thank you so much. And Rita Cardoso Pinto, welcome so much to the Wine CEO podcast show.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm very honored with what Dale and Stephen said. I hope to live up to those expectations and to end this podcast, making sure that everybody is much more enthusiastic about Portuguese wines in general. And so thank you for the opportunity. I think that there is a lack of knowledge about Portuguese wines. I think that's what as a country, There's the lack of knowledge because I think every time a Portuguese wine is poured, there's always a good reaction. So we just need to be more known because the reaction is always good. So I thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity we are becoming a Portuguese ambassador now for
Yes,
Portuguese wines. So
of course.
so I thank you for that.
Yes, most definitely. Well, let's go back a little bit. So can you tell us, Rita, a little bit about yourself, how you got into the wine industry? I promise we'll get to all the good wines and talking about Portugal. But tell us about yourself. So how did you get into the wine industry?
So first of all, I'm the eldest daughter of my parents, and that's the first thing about me. And second, and most importantly, I'm a mother of four. And third, I work in the wine business. I'm the CEO of Quinta de Pinto Wines. And how did I get into this business? So this is my parents' estate. They bought this estate about 20 years ago. My father came from a family from the north, and the estate was in our family they were the sixth generation. And it was very difficult to run because there were 15 ramifications of the family. And so they sold the property, and my father thought that what comes from the land should go back to the land. And so he wanted a common roof for the family. And he wanted this common roof to be closer to Lisbon because that's where we lived. So that's what he set out looking for. So he bought a map and circled around Lisbon, and we started to look for estates. And he fell in love with this estate. This is one of the first estates that he saw that he fell in love with. It wasn't for sale, nor had he the money to do so. But years passed, and after 5 years of negotiation, my parents bought the estate. And when we got there, the land, it was very, very abandoned. It had pears, it had apples, it had nuts, and vines. It was never my father's intention to do a wine. He loves wine. He knows lots about wine. He's not a wine collector because he advocates that wines are to be drunk, and we need to create the moments to drink them. And it doesn't have to be at a christening or at a wedding or at Christmas. It has to be on a Sunday dinner, normal Sunday dinner. We have amazing wines as family. With just bread, cheese, and wine, it's fine. But when we got when he bought the property, he asked, okay, what is this land good for? Because there were lots of cultures on the land. And people said that this land was good for wine, and because people would pay one more Pinto coin for the wine. So Pinto was the currency of Portugal in the 17th century, and so the wine was valued, so people could pay one more coin. Curiously, Pinto is our surname also. So we found that it was a nice coincidence that the estate was known because the name of the property is Anjo, which means angel. So it's Angel State, but it's always been known as Pinto State. And so we found, okay, this is a nice coincidence. And if this land is good for wine, so that's what we'll set out to do. And so this like a passion of my father became suddenly a business because that was the land. That was what the land was good for. How I got into the business. So as I said, I'm the eldest of three. And we have, as a family, we're Portuguese and we're very family intense. And so we're together every Sunday. We have dinner every Sunday. And as I said, my father always brings to the table, my mother's cooking. We always have bread, cheese, and wine. And we have always in our life have wines from different parts of the world, different parts of Portugal. And I didn't, he'd pour me a glass and white, I could see, I can see it's red. Rosé was kind of like, I don't know what this is. This is probably a mixture. Yeah. So this is my understanding of wine and my appreciation of wine. And my brother and my sister, younger, they have much better palates and they appreciate it. They didn't know about it, but they appreciated it. So when my parents bought the estate and we set out to do the wine, of course we participated on the weekends because it was closer to Lisbon, so we go there every weekend and we go instead of just on the holidays. And we participate on the harvest on the first and the second one, but we'd cut a little bit, but we'd come back to the porch and relax, and then and then we'd all at night we'll all go together as a family to the cellar to do but we didn't quite understand what we were doing, or I didn't understand what we were doing. And my father was very smart in the way that he never asked us, the three kids, to work in the business. I think he was very intelligent as a family company or as a family business. I think it's important that the family comes in because, or the element of the family comes in because he wants to or she wants to, and is passionate and wants to do something, instead of, pressure. Because I mean, I wouldn't say, if my father ever said, okay, can you come and help me, or can you come and help, I would always say yes, regardless of not understanding anything about wine. So how did I come in? How, of the three of us, I'm sure he was not expecting me at all to be the one that stepped in. So I kind of thought he even dreaded it, to be honest, but he never says so. But I think he probably dreaded it when I said, why not? So what happened was that I was working in a multinational company, marketing, very interesting budget, have a very super city and marketing world. And then I decided that I didn't want to work in that company anymore. And this was a time where CVs and multinational companies it was a different time of the economy, clearly. So I just said, okay, I'll do the harvest. And he said, okay, come and do the harvest. He had a small kid. Why don't you just do the harvest from instead of just being on the weekends, just participate. And so I did. And then the click happened. Now the violin starts. It started to, but it's true. I participated, from sunrise to sunset in the field. So I was picking with the women all day. And it began to hit me that, I didn't understand that I was cutting a bunch that was, started to prepare in December. And I knew nothing. I knew so little about wine that my friends asked me, when is your wine ready? And I'd say, look, now, because it's September, but October, it'll probably be ready. This is how much I knew. Yeah. And we were fermenting wines in October. We were picking in October. We were fermenting wines in January. So this is, but it was nature, to be honest. Now that the conversion for me was for nature, was to be with the women on the field and working long hours, on hot days, and picking and understanding that each grape has its timing, and each grape then will be used for a different thing. And especially when the harvest ended, when everything was from no more grapes in the land, on the fields, many things happening in the cellar, which I had no understanding of. And when the leaves, started to fell off the vines, and again, this is where the violins come in, I just realized I like this. And I am this big compared to what Mother Nature is. So I kind of felt small, like we don't control everything in our life. And this is something much bigger. And this is something that starts, as I said, in December, is made in September, and then will be drunk probably only 10 years from now. So it kind of shifted my and I just said, I think I'd like to do this. And so this is how it began, with no knowledge. I didn't even like wine. I didn't know, but I didn't even like wine at all. I like wine much. I do like wine immensely. I know a little bit more, but yeah, now trying to make it short, to answer your question, I fell in love with the viticulture. See, I talk too much. I fell in love with the viticulture and the process, and the respect for the women. I say women because our group, our ranch is made. Ranch is not an English word. The people that work with us, I don't know the English term. In Portuguese, it's rancho. So it's our group of workers is basically women. We have 3 men, which is my father, the owner, the winemaker, and the tractor driver. All the rest is the women's. Not a feminist thing. It just happens to be that way. And I think women are more meticulous than men, especially because we are very much more labor intensive in the way that, as we have a more nature or more natural approach to the viticulture, we tend to do more handwork than chemical work, and women are more meticulous. But it was a process. Basically, it was a process. It was a timing. It was this group of women, and I felt this thick or this small compared to. On my first day of harvest, it rained, it poured, and we have to harvest. Like, the cases are here. And the winemaker at the time said, yeah, it's fine, it'll stop raining. But they were ready to pick. We'll pick an hour later. And everything was a complete drama. And then I started to taste wine, and I started to understand that we have a lot of different grapes and how they can blend in different ways. And we made wines. The first wines that we made were like for our pure pleasure. We had no marketing plan. We had no sales plan. We had nothing. We just were exploring the grapes that were already there because the estate had old vines that we still maintain till today. My father was thinking of other grapes to plant and to extend. And it was like work in progress, and I started to learn. And then it got to a point where a professor, we have a protocol with the Lisbon and the Montpellier universities. So as we are close to Lisbon, we're an open field for students to do their thesis, to do experiments, it's good for us because we can learn a little bit more and be a little bit more on top of what is happening. And then the students need the fields to do their experiments. And also what is good is that the professor comes and accompanies them. So when the professor came with the students to do, and we have interns for the harvest, which is also very good. Interns that are learning about wines and being a winemaker, which is also helpful, of course. But every time that the professor came, I'd go with him on the field and try to learn a little bit more. And he kept on insisting, saying, "Okay, Rita, why don't you come back to university and do your master's?" I said, "Look, I did business, I did management. God knows how last exam I'm done. I'm ever going to sit my butt back on university ever. So no way." And he kept on insisting, "Come on and do your viticulture and enology." So after I think 2 years of insistence, I said, okay, I spoke to my father and him, and I said, okay, I'll go, but I will not do my thesis. I just want to go and learn. And that's why I didn't finish it, because I have no thesis, but I did go to every class, do the exams. And my intention was not to become the master viticulture or the master winemaker. It was to just understand about the business. And when you talk about mildium and oidium, and you talk about pruning, and we talk about blending, that these things that I had for 2 years had heard of and had participated in, suddenly they started to make sense scientifically. So it was very useful for me to go back. And
I love your passion. I mean, I love.
Please interrupt me.
No, no, you're fine. I feel bad interrupting you because I'm loving listening
No.
to you talk. Just your whole story. I mean, every winemaker seems to have, or a wine industry professional will say, has their own unique path of how they found their way into wine. But everyone seems to have that same moment where you just clearly know you've been sucked down that rabbit hole of just falling in love with wine. And I love that for you, it kind of came through this passion for nature and seeing that process of the grape growth and being a part of that, but realizing what a small person you are compared to this big, beautiful nature. I mean, how incredible.
Yeah.
And I love that your dad didn't force you into it, that you got there.
Because I think that's the problem with when you force you rather say yes because you don't say no to a father, or you say no because you think it's right, but I'll say it's black for the rest of my life. And I think he was very intelligent in that. And then later on, my sister came along on the sales side. And my brother, he doesn't participate formally in the business, but he has a very good palate. Both him and my sister have better palates than any of us. And so my brother is also a tester. He's not a blender, but we have blends. I give him the blends to taste, and he says, I like this better than this one. I think this is more in line. So he too has an informal part. So he doesn't participate. He does one fair per year because the fair is so many days that I say, Francisco, you have to come because that's, I have the kids and it's too many hours. So one day per year, he comes to the wine fair. He sweats because he gets nervous of the questions people will ask. Like he looks at the technical sheets, and if he was like, oh, my sister will answer that. Oh, my sister will answer that. He just has there pouring and sweating. But he tastes. He's a very good taster, and he gives very good inputs to the wine too. And then my mother also, she likes a particular style of wines or grapes that I think this wine has that grape that I like. The one that I don't know the name? Yes, Mommy does. And so she takes care, and she also cooks for us all when we're at the harvest, and she takes care of my kids so that I can travel. So it is a truly family business, everyone with a specific role and everybody doing everything, which is also very typical to family businesses, is that I have a CEO on my business card, and in golden, which is very fancy, but I do everything. I do deliveries, I do podcasts, I do the viticulture, I do the blending. So everybody's everything. That's a part of the fun, and that's also part of the enthusiasm, is that doing different roles, you get in contact with different realities, and then you get in contact with the sales part, which is very difficult. But the consumer part is really nice. Is seeing people's reactions to the wine and understanding, and that I truly love. And I still blush till I've told this to Dale and to Stephen till today. If I go into a restaurant and I see a bottle of my wine on the table, I blush. I still turn completely red with I think, oh my God.
That's so cool. I love hearing that, because I think, when you think about these large wine houses around the world that are, making hundreds of thousands of bottles, I'm sure there's a lot of care that's put into those, but
absolutely.
When you get to hear about a family-owned winery where it is truly a family effort to come together and to create a beautiful product that can truly make a difference, in a consumer's life, and the pride that you have when you see someone enjoying this product you've created, that your family has really come together. I mean, it's just as much hard work for your mom to care for your kids.
Yeah.
Wow, right? Isn't that cool? Like, I just love hearing that. It's such a beautiful.
And my kids participate in the harvest, and particularly one of my twins. Whenever I travel, I come home and said, "Did you sell a lot of wine?" But in very serious, "Did you sell a lot of wine? Did people like our wine?" She's worse than my father. I said, "Yes, I didn't sell that much. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time."
I love it. That's so cute. And the pride she obviously has already. The family pride. Like, did you sell our wine? I love that. That's so amazing. So Rita, can you tell us a little bit about your region? I'm not going to pronounce this properly, but the Alenquer region, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. So yes. So we are in the Lisbon wine region. So it's from the capital going up, and it's all across, all along the Atlantic. And it's the region, the wine region that has more appellations, and we are in Alenquer, which is one of the most ancient and prestigious part of the regions. We're 25 kilometers from the sea, and we are shielded by the Monte Junto mountain. So there's a very big mountain that protects us from the northern winds, and on this way it comes the Atlantic Sea. And our state is a little bit of a valley, so there's a very typical or particular microclimate there. So the Lisbon wine region is I think very much about vibrant Atlantic influence. So very vibrant whites, very very fresh whites, and very also very vibrant and fresh reds, which have tremendous aging capacity, and very food friendly, of course, because of this freshness. In Alenquer, it's a region that has more ancient producers and more beautiful and ancient houses, because the kings and queens, they used to pass there, and so they're very pretty houses, and wine has been made there for quite a long time. But the main characteristic of all of the region is this Atlantic influence. In Alenquer, we're a little bit more inward, so if we have a little bit more structure. So even if we are 25 kilometers in from the sea, we still have a little bit more structure than the ones that are 7 kilometers or 8 kilometers from the sea. So there's a very good balance between structure and nice acidity and vibrance and minerality.
And you mentioned that there's quite a few red and white that grow very well there. I know that your family has, I think it's over 27 grape varieties.
Yes.
You're growing, yes. Right? So can you tell us for a moment what the region is known for, if it's maybe 2 or 3 specific varieties, and then also maybe not all of the grape varieties, but maybe why you have such a wide variety of so many, and then just a bit about that in general.
So the main grapes of Lisbon are on the white is Arinto, Fernão Pires, on the reds is Castelão, Tinta Miúda. These are, at least for us, being a Lisbon producer and being an Alenquer producer, these are the grapes that we use more. Okay, so of course, although we have 27 different grapes, many of them are Portuguese, and many of them are international. And within the Portuguese, of course, we have our appellation grapes, because we may do these blends, we blend Portuguese with international grapes, but we never forget that we are a producer from Alenquer. We do not forget that we're a producer from Lisbon. So these are the main grapes, these 4. So I'll say them again: Tinta Miúda, which is a red grape; Castelão, also red, which is actually a little bit more from the south of Lisbon. And then on the white, Arinto, and the crib of Arinto, where it's born, yeah, crib. The crib of Arinto is Bucelas, which is the appellation next to us, and then Fernão Pires. So these are the 4 main grapes of the region, and then also Viuzinho, which we planted not on the first plantation, but on the second plantation that we did. We also added to Viuzinho. To these Alenquer grapes, we added the big national grapes, like Touriga Nacional and Tinta Roriz, for instance. Then we went to get some other more typical grapes from other regions, like Encruzado and Alvarinho, which is also very, very famous, both in Spain as in Portugal. And here the idea was to bring grapes that are noble grapes that we like a lot, or that my father likes a lot, because these grapes were kind of completely chosen by him. And so we went to get the more noble grapes from different regions of Portugal. Because something that is interesting is that whilst for instance, in France, you have, Bordeaux has these grapes, Burgundy has these, and you don't mix them, and it's kind of no way do you mix one grape. Here in Portugal, we're a little bit more flexible. Of course, there's the origin of the grapes, and of course, if they're originally from there, they tend to outperform themselves better there. But we get grapes from many regions very easily. We plant them with, and then the international part is mainly from the Rhone. My father loves the Côte-du-Rhône style wine. So especially on the whites, this kind of mouthfeel, this roundness, this is very much the style of wine that he likes. And we had nothing to lose. So we planted Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier, Syrah, and now on the second round we've planted a little bit more of Semillon, and so we planted these international grapes. Again, we had nothing to lose. There was already one producer in Lisbon that had Viognier, and there was another producer that did a very good Syrah too. So we knew that they performed well close to us, or in a neighbor of ours that has the style of wine that we also like. And the other ones, no one had ever heard of. So there was nothing for us to risk. And so what we do is we separate these 27 different grapes, and we separate them by brands, in a sense that we are a blending country. So Portuguese wines are a lot about blends. I'm sorry. It is much easier, especially in the US, you're very like, oh, this is a Pinot, I want a Chardonnay, I want a Cab, on a Cab, the way that you said it. It's not. But in Portugal, we are a blending country. I think that tradition comes a lot from the port wine, where we're blending different years. So as Portuguese wines tend to be blends. We started to do more single varietals when as a country we started to export. I think it makes our export consumers, or foreign, not the export consumers, sorry, foreign consumers, it's easier for them to understand, because it's one grape various saying this is the back label has like 10 or 7 grapes that they can't even pronounce. So the single varietals does help to start to get to know at least the name of the Portuguese grapes to start to come up. So what we do is, with these 27, we had the temptation to do 27 different wines every year. So we have to hold ourselves not to do so. So we divided into 3 brands. So on the Lasso, Lasso is the surname of my grandmother, and it's a tribute to the women in our family. We are a very matriarchal family, and on the Lasso brand, what we do is truly Alenquer wines. So we go back to the Alenquer typical blends. And as the one that you have there, it's a blend of Arinto and Fernão Pires, so the main grapes of Lisbon. And then we have the Anjou brand, which is Anjou, so that it's the name of the land, so it's a tribute to the land. And what we do is we take the Lisbon blends and we add 1 international grape. And what we do with this brand is specifically wines with a lot of age. So we release like the whites when they're like 8 years old, 7 years old, and the reds 10 years old. I was thinking so it's to show complete They're very serious and longevity wines. And then we have the Pinto brand, which is the coin. So it's a tribute to the coin, but also clearly a tribute to our grandfather. So of the Pinto surname. And on the Pinto brand, then we have 3 branches. We have the blends, which we call State Collection, which what we intend to show is the collection of the grapes of the estate. So they are blends that we do 3 Lisbon grapes with 3 international grapes, both on the white and on the red. So it's Rinto, Fernão Pires, and Miozinho. And then it may vary, maybe Viognier, Roussanne, Semillon. And the next year we can change 1 or 2. And that's something also that's very interesting with the blends, is that it's not always the same recipe. I mean, you can't have a year like this year be compared or try to equal it to a year like last year. And so, of course, we maintain the profile of the wine and the base of the grapes, but the percentage of the grapes may vary. And if this year Viognier is too fresh, then we put a little less Viognier and a little bit more Fernão Pires, and also on the French side. And then we have a branch that is single varietals, which is the Touriga Nacional that you also have with you. And then we have another branch, which is the Grande Escolha, which is our Grand Reserve. And on our Grand Reserve, again, it's blends. And what we do with the Grand Reserve is we blend the 2 main grapes from the Portuguese side with the 2 main grapes from the French side. So it is Touriga Nacional, which is a national grape, Quinta, which is our local grape. And then we blend it with Cabernet and with Syrah. Petit Verdot with Syrah. So again, it's blends. Basically, we are a blending country and a blending producer, keeping the Lisbon profile, so keeping freshness and vibrance and minerality on the whites, but still have a nice mouthfeel coming in from the Rhone style. We call the Portuguese Rhone because of the style of our wines, especially on the whites. And I tend to say that if we weren't so close to the Atlantic, our wines would be heavy. They'll be round. And this Atlantic, it sustains our whites. And on the rest, they give them an immense freshness, an immense vibrance, a brutal aging capacity. So we keep the Portuguese and the Alenquer profile, and we blend these Alenquer with international grapes because my father was a fan of those grapes. We didn't have anything to lose. We planted them. They go well. We blend them well. Why not? Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. No, I love that you found a great way to integrate the history and culture of blending, which is to be so prominent throughout Portugal, while bringing in this creative side of some different varietals that your father was really excited about. Is it common to find a lot of these international varietals with other wineries throughout your region? Or do you find that most folks are sticking closer to the indigenous Portuguese varieties?
So what happened is Lisbon was one of the regions that first, I was going to say approached, but welcomed, not approached. It was one of the first regions that welcomed international grapes, mainly Syrah. I think Syrah was one of the first French grape that came to Portugal and performed very well. And I think it performs well in blends by itself, in cooler climates, in warmer climates. So it was kind of it performed well. So it was one of the first varieties, and Lisbon welcomed these international varieties. Cabernet also was one of the first grapes to come on board. And then the Alentejo, a little bit more south, they also started to use international grapes. I think that they perform very well. They make also these interesting blends. And I think we got to a part, even for us, we got to a part where we had so many international grapes. And what happened is that for the Portuguese market, they find it much more sexy to drink a Sauvignon Blanc than an Erinto. And so for that's why we're kind of not bipolar, but our range is quite big, and some of our wines are more. They're not. We didn't make them for the market. We make the wines that we like. That's one of the problems, or not, or the characteristics. I think it's what is more differentiating about our project is that we make the wines that my father liked. This is the style was clearly defined by our father. And then we have to find people that like them. And we have to find people like Dale and Stephen that are crazy to bring them on board. to take them abroad. So we had, when we started out to do this, we had nothing to lose. So even with these mixture of grapes, the Portuguese market found it very interesting and very sexy. They couldn't even pronounce Viognier. They have never heard of Roussanne. So that was very appealing to the Portuguese market. But when you look at the markets abroad, I can never compete against a Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, it's not my intention to do the best Viognier in come on, really. That I have or Syrah. There's a whole world out there. So of course, when we look for the international markets, what you want, what you're interested in is about Tarinto. It's about the indigenous grapes. So there has to be a balance where even if we do a Sauvignon Blanc with a Lisbon profile or with a Pinto profile, so now there's within these 27 different grapes, we have half Portuguese and half international, I would say. And what we're doing now is as we are recuperating some of the vines, what we're doing is we're not adding any more grapes. We're finished with adding no more ideas. What we're growing on the grapes that make more sense. And of course, what's making more sense is to do the Arinto, the Fernampides, the grapes that are more typical to the region. And what is interesting is that this interest that the international markets had on the indigenous grapes then turned the Portuguese market also a little bit more interested in what is indigenous and what is unique to us. So of course they find it very sexy and they like the Sauvignon Blanc, but now Arinto, oh yeah, it's not just in Bucelas, and Arinto is amazing. And you can drink Arinto 20 years old and it's amazing. Tinta Miúda, it's something that you had in your village. You were the only producer to use it. Now it's so now the Portuguese market, that they are too catching up to this indigenous grapes. So it kind of went this way, and now we're converging. And again, even if we do use international grapes, and even if we do a lot of single varietals that are just French, it still has the Lisbon character, it still has the Pinto character. But never forget that we are a Portuguese and we are a Lisbon producer.
Do you feel like there's a gathering of the winemakers and wineries within your region to kind of consolidate with a single focus, that the region becomes known for any particular style or any particular varieties? Because I know sometimes for consumers outside of a region, if there's too much variety, it can be difficult to understand what is this region for. Do you feel like that's been a discussion within your region with all the wineries coming together?
To be honest, no. There has been a discussion with the Wines of Portugal as a whole. So the Wine of Portugal is an institution that it's made to promote. Its mission is to promote Portuguese wines and to educate sommeliers, educate importers, educate consumers, and to organize fairs that will bring Portuguese wines abroad. That's their mission. And they have had, in the beginning, it was a bit different, because what makes Portugal amazing is that we have 360 different grapes. If we nail them down, they're actually 250, but you have the same grape that has different names in different regions. So if you add all that up, that's 360 different grapes, which is very interesting, and it's a world of difference. And so for for a long time, the end line of Portuguese wine, which was a world of difference. And the blending, so different in the sense of we have different terroirs in such a small country, which is amazing about Portugal, is that you have such a small country and you have so many different terroirs. So that too is different, okay? And you have the Atlantic influence, you have the Mediterranean influence, and you have the inland influence. So different, it is completely a world of difference. I completely understand. But 360 grapes that are unpronounceable, it's not easy for consumer nor for the importer to. So what the Wines of Portugal has done, and it was a bit controversial in the beginning, but I think we have to start somewhere. And going back to what I said about the single varietals, they have chosen a list, I think, of 10 or 12 main grapes, and they're trying to do the education based a lot on these grapes, but always explaining that we are a country of blends. But in this region, these are the grapes that are predominant in this region. So when we ask me about in my region, if we have done this as producers joined together, no, we have not. It has been more something that the Wines of Portugal, so as a country, has been doing. And I think that you have to start somewhere. And I'm thrilled when we go to a wine tasting and someone says, "Oh, Toriga," even if they have an English accent, or Arinto. And I said, "Yes." So you've joined the Arinto with something else, and you have to start somewhere. You know, you can't. I don't expect you to say Alfrocheiro correctly or Fernão Pires. Yeah, it's like the Greek grapes. I can't even say them. I'm not expecting you to know them. So there has been trying to nail them just to make it to start explaining. Probably in 20 years we'll have a list of 30. I don't know. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I think the pronunciation can sometimes be the one thing that scares off consumers, right?
Completely. Yeah.
You're looking at a wine list and you don't know how to pronounce it. You can't read it. So you just pick something else on the list. You're like, I'll get the Chardonnay,
Yeah,
and so
exactly. Yeah. That
it's
happened
hard.
to me. That's why we developed the range state collection on the Pinto range, because it's, again, as I say, it's a collection of the grapes of the estate. So what we do is it's a 6 grape blend. And it has, as I said, 3 typical or Elenquer and then 3 international. And I was at the wine fair once, and at that year, it happened that the slate red, it was I think the vintage. I think it was 2001. It had 5 Portuguese grapes and Syrah. And I remember saying to the consumer, "So this is Toriga Nacional, Tinta Roriz, Tinta Miúda, Castelão, and Syrah." And he stops and says, "Can I have a bit of your Syrah, please?" So all I had said, he didn't understand anything. It was too much information, too many grapes, too much Portuguese, but he understood Syrah. So, "Can I have your Syrah, please?" And so going back to these international grapes, is that the Portuguese grapes are they're very authentic. It's beautiful to be this indigenous, but sometimes it's complicated. And so if you do this bridge with blending them with international grapes, someone goes to a supermarket, and or to a wine shop, if they don't have the recommendation saying, "Look, try this Portuguese wine," they probably won't get, that they won't go into a wine shop and go directly to the Portuguese section. I wish, and we're working for that, and it will happen, but we're not exactly there yet. So if they have something that they can relate to, it makes their life easy. Say, "Oh, okay, this is Syrah, for instance. This is Syrah with Toriga Nacional. I do not know Toriga Nacional, but I know Syrah and I like it. So why not?" And what happens is, if they like it, probably then they'll go next time to a pure Portuguese wine. So blending it with some international grapes may then lead them, or we have found that leads them then to more pure Portuguese. But the names is very difficult. It's true. But again, the Greek names are unpronounceable too. Yeah. And Italian grapes too. So
And Italian too, exactly. They can all be challenging. And that's where I always like to encourage the listeners, like, if you don't know, that's okay. Point to something if you're ordering on a wine.
exactly.
Just
Yeah.
try it in a wine shop, because it's something new and different, right? We've all had a million Chardonnays, but try something different, because you'll find
Take a risk. Take a risk. And as I said in the beginning, I think one of the things that I find the most interesting is that people don't know about Portuguese wines. But I have never poured or of my brand or of any other brand. So I'm not particularizing in Quinta Pinto. I have never, because sometimes in the wine tastings, you pour wines from the other producers too. I have never poured a wine that people said, "Oh no." They're always surprised. 99% there's an "oh," and that oh makes us, they drink, they're interested, and then you talk a little bit, and the prices tend to be very reasonable also. So I think it's just lack of knowledge, and so give it a try. I think that you have to take a risk, and I'm sure that you will enjoy them.
I agree. And there's such great variety with Portuguese wines too, right? You can find
exactly
lighter styles, heavier styles when it comes to white,
exactly
rosé. You have so many
absolutely
options. So there's something
that's
for
right
everyone.
That's why there's a world of difference. Again, the end line makes complete sense. And it's very difficult. Like when people say, "Oh, Portuguese wine." So what is a Portuguese wine? What is I said, I can't explain a Portuguese wine because there is no type of Portuguese wine. Like people have a concept, "Oh, French wine is this and this." There's not a very style of Portuguese wine. There's a lot going on. But just give it a try. And I am sure that you'll be surprised. You have, as you said, like in the north, in the Vinho Verde, you have very fresh, vibrant, lighter whites, and then you come more south, and they're rounder, they're more bold, and then you have there's a place for everyone. And I think that's fascinating, again, in such a small country, which is amazing, in such a small country.
Rita, tell us a bit about wine tourism. So if someone's coming to Portugal to vacation and maybe they wanted to come visit wineries, do you feel like wine tourism is popular in Portugal? Is it being encouraged for folks to come visit at a cellar door and taste wines?
I think more and more, clearly more and more, that is becoming a thing. I think the as a consumer, the Alentejo, so the south, did that very well, and they organized the route very well. In our region, and also some producers are doing it, not as many as we would like, but now they're also there's been a change, and we're updating that, and even ourselves, we're finishing the works on the house to accommodate, because we always have done tastings and lunches and everything, but now for sleeping, we're ending those works too. So clearly there is more interest, both from Portuguese consumers as from foreigners. So yes, I think it's clearly something that it's growing, and it's people having the contact. Something, it's you buy a bottle of wine, and if you're in good company, it's always very good. Yeah. But if you go to a place and you see the vines, you see the cellar, you see there's an emotional link. So enoturism, what happens is that it also expands expands the brand and expands the experience of Portuguese wines in general. So there's an emotional link to the project. So and they're beautiful enoturism projects in Portugal, beautiful from north to south, beautiful, and they're growing, and so I'm very happy, and I think there is an interest, and you can do one thing in the morning and then do a completely different winery in the afternoon, both in styles, as architectonically as in wines. Yeah, so it's growing. It's something that's growing, which is good.
Love that. So it sounds like we all need to come visit Portugal. We need to come to Quinta,
yes.
Pinto and visit.
Yes, we're 45 minutes from the airport, so clearly you land and you come directly.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. And I'll definitely make sure in the show notes for today's episode to include all of the info for your website and visiting information so that folks can contact you. Rita, I'm curious, do you have anything exciting coming to the winery in the next 12 to 18 months, or anything that you're looking forward to? Maybe a big change. You said obviously finishing the house for guests to come stay there, but anything else that you're looking forward to in the next year or so?
I think yes. I think the enoturism is going to be the biggest thing that we are, the biggest, the most different step that we are going to do in a sense of for accommodation. I think every year, every harvest, there's always something different coming. So I'm sure I was in the cellar this morning and I was tasting 2 wines. And said, I like this. This was probably, so I'm sure that, new wines will come. And again, we have to restrain ourselves to do different wines every year. So I'm sure that new wines will come. So not only from this harvest, what we have done is also what we're doing is we're launching wines later. As I said, we are going to launch a wine that we tasted it today, and it's really good. I'm very happy. I hadn't tasted it prior to the bottling. Is we changed the process, so we did fermentation in oak barrel and then aging 3 years in cement, because our cellar is of cement, so it's a concrete deposit. And what we're doing is we're more and more aging wines in cement. So as I said, the vibrance and the freshness of the Lisbon wines, sometimes they have to calm down, so they need time in bottle, and time in vat. And so we've been doing more and more experiments with time in cement, time in concrete deposits. And so we're going to keep on, exploring that more. And so that I think will also be interesting to I don't know. I would like, to be present in more markets, but I think that's that's natural. And I hope that in 12 or 18 months, our wines will be better than they are today, and then better than the next. That's the process. But the enoturism is the main thing that we're going to be doing.
That's amazing. Very
Mm-hmm.
exciting. Well, I know Dale and Stephen gave you a beautiful intro, and I think you well exceeded the expectations of that intro, because truly it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Rita. And this is actually my first podcast episode on Portugal in the 2 years I've had my podcast. So you truly gave us an amazing intro to the region and a beautiful overview of your country. So thank you so much for joining me on the show. This has been an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you again. As I said in the beginning, thank you. We need to be, as a country, better known. So every opportunity that we have to talk about Portuguese wines is important. So I do thank you. As a Portuguese producer, I do thank you very much for this. And I do hope that your listeners will take a risk. I'm sure they'll enjoy.
All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Rita. She was an awesome guest, and I definitely learned a lot about the current state of the Portuguese wine industry. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to like and share this episode with a friend. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so now. I post new episodes every Wednesday morning, making wine fun and approachable for the average consumer. So hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of the upcoming wine content. If you want to learn more about Rita and her family's winery, check out today's show notes for links to her family's website. And if you are interested in hearing about some specific wines from Rita's family portfolio, stay tuned for an upcoming episode that'll be exclusive to my YouTube channel, where I taste through a few wines from Rita's portfolio and talk about them live. Rita shares more about the Portuguese wine industry, so it's definitely an awesome episode to check out if you enjoyed today's show. Until next week, friends, I hope you drink something new and delicious, and I will catch you all next Wednesday on the Wine CEO Podcast.